All right, we are live. Let's go live on Instagram. All right. Hello, everybody.
Hello, everyone.
It's Dr. Simran here with my mom, Minnie, and we come on live most Wednesdays. It's been a busy season, but we come on live on Wednesdays to show you the simple power of plant-based cooking and how it's easy and everything that it can do for your health. So during this session, we will cook a simple recipe and then also just talk about different topics. Today, I thought since it's National Diabetes Month, we could talk a little bit about diabetes. And I brought the proclamation from the American College of Lifestyle Medicine, where they share all the crazy statistics, but also the Bill of Rights, which means this is everything that we are entitled to know about this disease. And as a palliative care physician, I took care of, for almost 10 years, many people with the end stage complications of diabetes. And I think that's the biggest takeaway point here, is that we don't just develop a disease like diabetes overnight. You know, there are many things that happen before that, and it's important for us to know about them so that we can actually do something about it. And I, in particular, I'm very passionate about talking about metabolic diseases like diabetes, because women, particularly in the menopause years, like my mom and I are both in menopause, so we have to be extra careful with our metabolic health to reduce our risk of things like heart disease and stroke and etc. So we'll talk a little bit about that. If you have any questions, drop them in the chat. We would love to talk to you while I'm cooking. My mom's not cooking today. And for those of you that are joining us, thank you for being here. What I decided that I'm going to cook today is a lentil soup. So it's fall weather where I am. It's beautiful and it's the perfect time of year for a hearty lentil soup. My kids love it. I am actually on day 4 of my prolonged fast. So I'm not going to be eating this, and this is probably the hardest part about fasting, is cooking for my kids and my family. But for me, it's like, I don't know, Mom. I I don't know how you feel, if you would be able to do this, but for me, it's like it pushes me to the next level. Like being in the food, smelling it, and knowing that I'm not going to eat it, it just increases your resilience even more. So, but I'm actually not even hungry today. It's day 4, and I'm fully in cellular rejuvenation mode right now.
I'm
So,
also fasting, so I'm almost 16 hours in fasting. So I
okay.
will be having my lunch soon. So with my Unimate tool. So
Okay.
I know
Awesome.
what you're saying. So
And at the end of this session, we'll talk about the 2 tools that I love for optimizing metabolic health. One is what I use in my daily, everyday fasting routine, and one is something I do 2 to 3 times a year called Prolon, which is more of a prolonged fasting program for 5 days. And both have been helpful with optimizing metabolic health and mental health, especially in these busy, crazy, modern lifestyles that we all live. So I am a big fan of using tools while you're setting the foundation for a healthy lifestyle. So what we're making is a hearty lentil soup, and it's very simple. I mean, your base is gonna be a mirepoix, right? So onions, celery, and carrots. And then you can use any type of lentil you want, but typically this one, you make it with some sort of green lentil. So today I'm gonna be using French lentils, which are the little tiny green lentils, but you could also use regular green lentils, or you could use like beluga lentils. I mean, you can use any, there's so many types. And that's the fun part about this cooking, is that, you know, use what you have in your pantry or in your fridge. So one of the things that I did is I kind of prepped the, well, I didn't prep. I got help to prep the we don't eat out a lot. So the money that we would spend eating out, I then use it to buy back some of my time because we eat at home 90% of the time. And actually, more than that maybe. And so I get help once a week. Somebody comes in, she chops all of my veggies and everything so that I'm ready when I'm in the kitchen. It's very easy for me to cook. Um, so it's true that these things cost money, but sometimes we also just have to look at where we're spending our money, and it's just a matter of prioritizing and shifting things around. So I'm very blessed that we
You
have
guys
her.
are lucky that way because in our time when I was your age, we used to eat at home mainly. Like 99% time we were eating at home and then big family. So chopping and all that meal prep was a big part of our life, you know? Yeah,
Yeah.
but you like today's age and time, you guys are, you're single-handedly raising your family, so you're doing work and taking care of children and everything on top your plant-based. It takes a lot. So it's good to have some help for sure.
You could move here.
Eventually, that's the plan. But yeah, I'm coming soon. I'm
Yeah,
coming soon. Then.
we're gonna do a live session because Minnie's gonna be here. So we'll do some live sessions. So I'm just gonna saute my garlic and onions here real quick. And because I have a lot of onions, celery, and carrots, I'm gonna double this recipe. And if you join these lives, you know that I am a huge fan of batch prepping because nobody has time to cook a fresh meal 3 times a day. So I usually will cook something and then enough for us to eat it again during the week, and then enough to freeze some as well for a
Hello,
busy day
Minnie.
ahead.
To me here.
So, yeah, he's here. He's looking for his lunch.
Oh yeah.
So,
So if you can tell us a little bit about diabetes and like how these being plant based, how it helps us to live a diabetes free life and keep our insulin spikes in control.
So let's talk about, so I'm going to give you a high level overview of how we get to diabetes first. We won't go into the
Okay.
details of it, but it's
Okay.
important to understand that you don't just get diabetes overnight. So our body has a hormone called insulin, okay? The way I like to think about it is it's our energy storing hormone. So every time we eat food, what ends up happening is that food is broken down eventually into sugar. And so our body's natural mechanism is to release a hormone called insulin, which then takes that sugar and stores it in the place that it's supposed to be stored. So, and that's normal. Blood sugar spikes, all of these things are not necessarily dangerous if we're metabolically healthy and our insulin levels are healthy. And the way we keep them healthy is, like you said, eating high fiber, whole plant predominant foods, because those things keep our blood sugar when we eat a lot of fiber, it prevents our blood sugar from going up very quickly. So we don't want our insulin levels going up and down like this. We kind of want a slow up and down pattern, not a roller coaster pattern. But what ends up happening is that because we're living in these crazy lifestyles today, like I had mentioned, we're eating, I talk about this a lot, we're eating highly processed foods. That's most of our standard American or North American diet. They don't have any fiber. We don't have a lot of fiber in our foods. We are more sedentary than ever before, so we're not using our muscles. We don't have a lot of muscle. That's the other thing. We're always stressed out, which can also affect our insulin levels. We're not sleeping very much. That can also affect our insulin levels. So all of these things in combination, but especially our diet, over time can lead to something called insulin resistance, which is basically where our body just stops responding to insulin. So it doesn't work anymore, basically. And that's a problem because then, our cells can't properly use that energy. And what ends up happening is that your blood sugar can start to go higher. And eventually you may develop something called pre-diabetes, which is where your blood sugar is high, right? And not quite high enough for a blood test to catch that you have something called diabetes, but your blood sugars are high and your insulin levels can't keep up. So the higher your blood sugar levels are, the more your body's like trying to release insulin and trying to keep up, but it can't. And eventually, when you have really high blood sugars and really high insulin, you develop something called diabetes, essentially, which is a chronic illness that over time can lead to a lot of horrible diseases like heart disease and strokes and kidney disease. And in America, it's actually the leading cause of blindness. It can lead to things like peripheral neuropathy. That's where, if you've ever heard someone say they have, pins and needles sensation of their hands or their feet, that can be caused by diabetes. And basically, your cells are coated in sugar. Your blood cells are coated in sugar.
Just to add to it, your grandma, your dadi had the same issue. And it's all because of diabetes. Like she had pins and needles, she had the eye issue, she used to get gout. So these were all side effects of her disease of diabetes. And it all came because it was like not so much of fiber rich food.
I'll be right back. I'm gonna put the dog away. You keep talking.
Okay. So you know what, she brought up an amazing point here that the fiber plays a huge role. So there are different type of fibers, soluble fiber and insoluble fiber, which we don't get. Yeah, we do need protein for the body, but the biggest thing we need is fiber, which you're not receiving through the food these days, right? So when you're eating plant-based meal, it gives you all type of fiber. It gives you soluble fiber and it gives you insoluble fiber, which controls your glucose spike, keeps you fuller more. Right? Simran?
Yep. 100%.
Yeah. So this is something I saw the shift in my own health since I become fully plant-based.
Yeah. And this is the thing. I think what most people don't realize, I mean, if you look at the statistics of we won't even talk about insulin resistance, because most people walking around today are insulin resistant and they don't realize it. So the statistic for pre-diabetes and diabetes, pre-diabetes means if you don't do anything about it, you're surely going to move on to diabetes. And for pre-diabetes in America, 98 million people are pre-diabetic, but 90% of them don't know they're pre-diabetic. That's 1 in 3 people. So that is very scary. And the rates of, because of the rates of obesity and metabolic syndrome, right? Metabolic syndrome is, something like insulin resistance or prediabetes, irregular cholesterol levels, abdominal obesity, these things are leading to increased risk of or increased rates of diabetes as well now. And so, we're having issues with obesity in our children now as well. And so children are being diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, which is largely a preventable lifestyle disease. And if you look at this, the rates of diabetes, right, as of right now, 38 million Americans have diabetes, and that's 1 in 10 Americans, but 1 in 5 don't know they have it. Right? So it's pretty crazy, because we're walking around sick and we're not understanding why we're feeling the way we're feeling. Like, why are we so tired? Why do we have so much brain fog? Why don't we have enough energy? Why do we feel thirsty all the time? Why do we have skin discoloration? Why do we have skin tags? Why do we have all these hormonal issues? A lot of this comes down to the same root cause. And diabetes is the long-term consequence of these what I call silent symptoms or silent killers.
Yeah.
So I put my mirepoix in. So I have my onions, I have my garlic, I have my carrots and celery. Now, if you haven't realized, this big, beautiful pot here is called an Instant Pot. I pretty much use it for 90% of my cooking because it makes my life very easy. But basically what I'm gonna do is really just add, because I sauteed and cooked my mirepoix, now I'm just really gonna add my my spices, my lentils, the broth, and the diced tomatoes, and we're gonna be done. And then once it's once it cooks, at the end, I'm gonna add a little bit of vinegar, balsamic vinegar, and then I'll also add some fresh herbs in there as well. So I'm going to add, this is asking me for 1 can. Yeah, so I'm gonna add this whole thing here. And I am not a cook. I am not a cook, just FYI. I just love to cook because 1, it's healthier. And number 2, it makes my mom proud. And number 3, it is cheaper. In today's world, it's very hard to go outside and eat a healthy meal for 4 people and not, break the bank. So,
okay. You want to talk about the lentils? What kind of fiber are they? They're soluble or insoluble? Do you know?
well, every food you eat will have a blend of different types of fibers. But I believe lentils fall under legumes, which are a type of soluble fiber. So that's going to be really,
So
really good because
what the soluble fiber do for your gut?
yeah. So the best way to think about a soluble fiber, and just showing you that I don't have all the seasonings that the soup is asking me for. So I'm just gonna, instead of putting separate basil, separate parsley, separate oregano, I'm just gonna put Italian seasoning. So just remember that even if you don't have what it's calling for, you can be creative in your kitchen. And I always add more seasoning than they ask for because the more seasoning and spice you have, the better your food is going to taste. Okay, so soluble fiber, the best way to think about soluble fiber is that it's like a sponge. So when it goes in your gut, it basically soaks up everything that your body doesn't need extra of. So it'll bind the blood sugar, prevent it from having, like rapid spikes. It'll bind your cholesterol, bad cholesterol. It'll bind excess hormones, and it will basically help it leave the body in your stool. And there's so much more that, that fiber, the soluble fiber does, right? Like fiber is also food for your gut bacteria. Our gut microbiome is, now some people say that we are more bacteria than we are human cells. So our gut microbiome, the health of our gut microbiome actually determines how healthy we are as human beings. So our gut microbiome plays a huge influence in our hormonal health. It plays a huge influence in our metabolic health. It reduces if we have healthy gut bacteria, it reduces inflammation levels in our body and therefore reduces risk of so many chronic diseases like diabetes and like heart disease and so many others. And the other thing, what we don't realize is that our gut microbiome is really linked to our mental health because 90% of our, happy hormones are actually produced in our gut. So soluble fiber is food for your gut bacteria. Keep your gut bacteria happy and they will keep you healthy. That's what I say. So that's soluble fiber. And then insoluble fiber is, you think of it like a broom. So it goes in and kind of brooms, it helps with some of the same things as soluble fiber, but it really sweeps your colon. So it keeps your bowels regular, keeps everything moving. And that's really important too, because you don't want anything stagnant in there, right? You want everything to move through. So if you're eating food, you should be pooping out the waste of what you don't need, what your body doesn't
So
need.
would you like say few vegetables and fruits and stuff which are example for soluble and insoluble fiber?
I mean, the thing is, like, instead of going into the weeds of it, right? Like, instead of saying, oh, I'm going to eat this because it has soluble fiber, I'm going to eat this because it has insoluble fiber, what I would just encourage you to do, because here's the statistic, is that 1 in 10 people are eating the recommended amounts of fruits and vegetables, right? Most people think they're eating enough, but 90% of people are not eating enough fruits and vegetables. And so if you just eat a variety of fruits and vegetables, and there was a huge gut microbiome study done showing people that eat 30 plants, 30 different types of plants or more, right? Like in here, in this soup alone, right? And spices count. So far I have garlic, onion, celery, carrots, tomatoes, right? So just right now in this soup alone, I have 5 or 6. So in one whole week, if you can eat 30 different types of plants, those people had better gut microbiomes and gut diversity, meaning different types of healthy bacteria, compared to people who ate 10 or less types of plants per week. So my encouragement to you is, instead of focusing so much on like, this is soluble, this is insoluble, focus on a diversity of plants, which will give you the different types of
No,
healthy fibers that
I
you need.
understand that. I was just for the understanding point of view.
Yeah. But then I'm gonna add, let's see, I'm gonna add my lentils. So like I said, I have French lentils, so I'm gonna add those. And I'm not
By the
paying
way, I really
attention.
love these lentils.
Yeah, they're so tasty. They're so tasty. I'm not paying attention to what's happening on Instagram, so hopefully if somebody has questions, you'll tell me. Alright, so here's we go. So now we're gonna add, actually I might not have enough lentils for how much. Okay, I don't have enough lentils. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna mix my lentils. So I'm gonna get a different type of lentils from here. Let's see.
So, guys, as fall has started and winter is coming up, lots of lentil soups and chilies we can make with lot of different type of vegetables. As Simran is saying, that don't worry about soluble, insoluble, have a variety. So this is one pot meal which me and Simran both always making in our kitchens. That we make different type of lentil soups or chilies which and the good part about these kind of things, there is not much of a recipe. Whatever vegetables and fruits vegetables you have in your fridge, you can dump it and it will turn out nice with some kind of different spices. You can make Indian spices, you can use Italian spices. uh, different, all different countries has different spices to offer, so we can make a different flavor with every recipe.
Yeah.
And the best part is that when you're using spices, it really a good flavor to it.
Yeah, and these, like, spices count. Like, spices have a lot of health benefits. So
Yes.
spices count when you're counting the number of plants you're eating. Your spices should also count. So I'm just gonna.
I didn't know. What do you call dalchini? Cinnamon. Cinnamon has so many health benefits, especially for diabetes. You can have cinnamon tea in the afternoon or whatever. After your meal, have cinnamon tea.
Yeah. So
So
there's a
it's
lot of
really
benefits. There's a lot of benefits from fiber. There's a lot of benefits from antioxidants. There's a lot of benefits, you know, even from spices and herbs for blood sugar control, for blood cholesterol control, for your metabolic health, and for prevention of things like diabetes and heart disease and all of that. So the more of these things that you cook with, more whole plant foods, more fiber foods, the better it's going to be for your overall health. So going back to this paper, because these statistics are crazy, one of the things I want to point out is a lot of things that I've heard in my career from people is, oh, I have diabetes. I have diabetes in my family. It runs very strong. I'm destined to get it, so I might as well just eat and drink whatever I want. Here's what I want you to remember, and this is coming from someone who has a genetic mutation. My mom and I have the BRCA1 genetic mutation. We have a hereditary predisposition, so our lifetime risk of getting some of these cancers was really high before we had our surgeries. And these genetic mutations, whether you're talking about for cancer, or whether you're talking about for heart disease, whether you're talking about for diabetes, these genetic mutations only account for about 5 to 10% of all the cases of cancer, of all the cases of diabetes. So that means 85 to 90% of these conditions are lifestyle related conditions. So get this belief out of your head that I am destined to get this. Our genes do not determine our destiny. And I am telling you that as a genetic mutation carrier.
yeah.
Our genes do not determine our destiny. And there is so much more power in our lifestyles than we are led to believe. And here's the thing, as a conventionally trained doctor, there is a time and place for medicine, right? If you break an arm, you need to go to the hospital. If you get in an accident, you need to go to the hospital. If you're having a heart attack right now, you need to go to the hospital. But where we fail and why our country is as sick as it is because conventionally trained doctors like myself, we were not trained in how to use lifestyle as medicine. We were not trained on nutrition and the science of movement and, you know, the root cause of disease. How we were trained is to diagnose a disease once it's there and then prescribe a medication and then another medication and then another medication. And I can tell you, as someone who practiced palliative care for almost 10 years, every single one of my people that I took care of at the end of life was on pills and had surgeries for decades. And not a single one of them improved their condition. They all eventually progressed over time until they got to me and they passed away. So, you know, what this says is most current treatments of type 2 diabetes assume it to be an irreversible chronic illness requiring more and more medications. And what's important for you to know is that it's not irreversible and it is treatable. Even if you have it, it's preventable and treatable if you have it. Okay. And that is a very empowering thing to know when, you know, this is a disease that is running rampant: insulin resistance, pre-diabetes, and diabetes. That's the spectrum, right? It is running rampant in our society. And so to know that it's something that we can control and reduce our risk of not only could change what our life looks like, but could change what our children's future life looks like. And that is also a huge problem. Here it says it's predicted for children born in the United States after the year 2000, as many as 40% of them are going to develop type 2 diabetes. At the end of right before I was leaving the hospital, in my clinic for palliative care, I was seeing 30 and 40-year-olds, people in their late 30s, in their early 40s, waiting for heart transplants because they were diagnosed with diabetes in their late teens and early 20s. Like, take that in. These conditions are not without downstream consequences. And the only way to prevent the massive heart attack, the stroke, the kidney disease, the only way to prevent that is to take the action today. Whether you have whether you have signs and symptoms of insulin resistance, whether you have prediabetes, whether you have diabetes, any action you take today towards adding more fiber, more plants to your diet, moving your body more, getting better sleep, managing your stress more, all of these things will have a stacking effect and reduce your downstream risk of these diseases. And yes, there is a type of, their genes do matter a little bit, and there is a different type of disease called type 1 diabetes, which typically is the genetic variant of diabetes. But what we're talking about today, and don't mistake my words, what we're talking about today is a type 2 diabetes, which can be diagnosed at any age and is mainly and largely a lifestyle related disease. Thanks, Sherry Chance. We're getting some love. She's saying, I love this, great work. I appreciate it. I'm really starting to make it my mission here. I saw way too many people die from preventable lifestyle related diseases, and I'm really making it my mission to now go upstream. And that analogy of, we're going in the bathroom and we're just like mopping the floor because there's water everywhere, but no one is turning off the faucet, right? So it's really important for us as doctors and just people who have access to so much information today to go upstream and say, okay, what's the root cause of this issue? Right? This is crazy. Most people with type 2 diabetes report never being told their disease may be prevented, arrested, and even reversed. I'm going to put a hand up because for the longest time, until I became board certified in lifestyle medicine, which was only about 4 or 5 years ago, I actually, as a doctor, did not realize that diabetes could be prevented, treated, and reversed using our lifestyle. And I'm a doctor. So if you're going to your doctor and you have a disease like diabetes and you're thinking they're going to treat you, they are going to treat you, but the treatment they give you is really only going to be a Band-Aid. It's not going to actually address the root cause of the diabetes to reverse it. Prab is saying, feel free to ship some over here, Simran. You know what, Prab? You just had a sweet baby, and maybe if you want, I can actually come and drop some food off for you. I remember how hard the early days were. This is a new friend in the area. So I remember how hard the early days were when you have a new baby at home. My mom was my savior at that time. So, so here's the Diabetes Bill of Rights. What does this say? This says that we as human beings have the right to be fully informed. We have the right to be fully informed on what is diabetes, what are the treatments for diabetes, including the lifestyle options that we have to treat and reverse this disease, right? We have a right to know all the medications that are being prescribed to us, including the side effects, and the fact that some of the medicines that we take can actually increase our risk of diabetes. Like, we are given, statins for cholesterol, and that's fine. If you don't want to make the lifestyle changes and you just want to take a statin for your cholesterol, that's fine. But did you know a statin can also increase your risk of getting type 2 diabetes, right? So every pill we take doesn't come without some sort of risk or side effects. So make sure you're asking and make sure you know what you're putting in your body, especially when we have alternative options that don't come with side effects, right? Our lifestyle, the beautiful thing about our lifestyle habits is that there's only positive benefits. There are no negative benefits.
Mm-hmm.
You have the right to know that certain foods increase your risk of developing type 2 diabetes. 65% of the average American's calories are coming from processed and ultra processed foods. And for our children, it's 70% of their calories today are coming from processed and ultra processed foods. You have a right to know that these foods are linked to higher rates of metabolic syndrome, meaning high cholesterol, prediabetes, diabetes, heart disease, kidney disease, cancers. So the standard American diet is slowly killing us. And we have a right to know that.
Right to know and then do something about it, right?
Yeah. And here's the final piece of it is that the same dietary pattern, right? Eating more of a high fiber, plant predominant pattern is going to, and then adding in movement, reducing your stress, sleeping better, is not only going to reduce your risk of getting insulin resistance and prediabetes and diabetes and metabolic syndrome, but it's also going to reduce your risk of all the downstream consequences, meaning the heart attack, meaning the kidney disease, meaning you don't need dialysis, meaning the stroke, meaning the blindness, meaning the number of times I have seen somebody beg me not to cut their legs off. I get chills thinking about it. The number of times I was called to see a patient because they've had diabetes for so many years, and now they have such a bad infection because diabetes affects your body's ability to heal itself. It affects your body's ability to heal its wounds. And eventually when you can't feel your toes, you bump into things and then you get a cut. And eventually that cut gets bigger and bigger and your body can't heal it. And then it gets infected. And then guess what? You chop one toe off and then another toe and then another toe and then part of the foot and then the ankle. And then eventually it just keeps going up. The number of times I have had people beg me to ask the doctors for another solution because they did not want to cut their legs off is, I can't even tell you how many times I've had that conversation.
Yeah.
And that was part of the reason why I felt like I had to leave palliative care, because I couldn't have these conversations with these people anymore, knowing that this could have been prevented. Like, to me, morally, it was painful to watch them suffer like that from a disease that could have been prevented. And I'm even more passionate about talking about it now as a young woman in menopause, because I just read an article the other day that women after menopause, more women die from heart disease than they do from all cancers combined. Estrogen is extremely protective for our heart health, for our metabolic health. It's got anti-inflammatory properties. And even though when we're young, it drives us crazy with the PMS, as we get older and we lose it, it's like losing our best friend, because it was protecting us from so many chronic diseases. And
Yeah, so I had my menopause at 34 and I didn't know. And you are in the same age. You also got into menopause at age 33. And I didn't know how estrogen plays a huge role. And I, I now fall and I break bones because my bones have become brittle, right? And then so many things comes with menopause, which recently it all hit me last year. I learned so much about health, that how even being in menopause can, it's a total different, it affected my relationship as well because I didn't know.
I mean, it affects everything. I mean, once we go into menopause and we lose estrogen, we lose our best friend. It increases our risk of insulin resistance, of metabolic syndrome, of diabetes, of heart disease. It increases our risk of anxiety and depression. It increases our risk of sexual dysfunction, which can then impact our relationships, our intimate relationships. Like, there is so much about menopause that affects a woman that we don't talk about. And that's the part to me that's mind-blowing. And even now, like right
The way
now,
you are handling menopause is total different ball game than the way I did. I didn't know.
well, it's also unfair because I am on an estrogen patch, which,
Plus, you are a doctor. You are so knowledgeable. For
yeah,
me, 10 years ago, there was no even any social media then. Not
no,
10 years. I mean, 20 years ago.
yeah.
Right? 22 years ago. There was no social media. There was no support for anybody to tell me. I did make some changes in nutrition, but whatever I got from my yoga school and all that kind of stuff.
Well,
That's-
you can't look in the back rear view mirror and blame yourself for something you didn't
No, no,
know.
no. I'm
But the
just
fact
saying.
that you're 56 today and you're doing all the things that you're doing, today's the youngest you're ever going to be. And what you're doing today is going to pay off in your 70s and in your 80s. You know, like your grandkids want you around. And the fact that you're putting in the effort to take care of your health is the greatest gift that you can give yourself and us, really, right? So,
And then the basic metabolic health is so, so important. Diabetes, cholesterol, high blood pressure. If you see any of these, you can control these diseases with what? With just eating well for your own body. That's my father died at 97, 98. My mother lived for 80. They didn't have any of these diseases because they used to walk a lot, they used to exercise, they used to eat whole food, like they were not eating those pizzas and burgers when they were young. That's why they could last for so long. In this last 1 month, last week, we lost a 51-year-old, 54-year-old guy with massive heart attack, and another death a month ago here in Toronto. The month ago was 51-year-old, and 54-year-old died just last week with massive heart attack. And there are like, when you speak to people, they say, oh, he was very skinny, he was very healthy. Skinny doesn't mean you're healthy. The lifestyle, the what you're eating, what you're doing in day-to-day life, it it matters a lot.
yeah, and especially for our South Asians and our ethnic people, we can be very lean because we don't deposit as much fat in our subcutaneous tissue, right? Like right here, we don't deposit a lot of fat in our subcutaneous tissue. Where we store our fat is in our visceral, around our viscera, we call it, around our organs. So that's like, the thick yellow fat. Imagine it wrapping around your liver, imagine it wrapping around different parts of your abdomen. That's known as visceral fat. And around and within, right? We call this fatty liver, right? That's bad fat deposited in your liver where it's not supposed to be. And so over many years of, that bad fat is eventually what will lead to insulin resistance and prediabetes and diabetes. And, sometimes people don't get diabetes, right? They may just have insulin resistance for a very long time and end up with a massive heart attack, right? Every single person like is completely unique in their composition, their genes, everything is so different. So even if someone has the same risk factors, it may not manifest the same way. In one person, it may be a massive heart attack. In another, it may be a cancer diagnosis. Right? So I think it's very important for people to realize that just because you're thin and lean doesn't mean that you're metabolically healthy. So, there is something known as metabolically obese thin adults. And that's why it's so important to get your blood work, get your
Yeah.
routine blood work so that you get a window inside what is happening in your body so that you can stay on top of it and, get your regular, blood panel, get your metabolic panel done, including your cholesterol, ApoB even. ApoB is an even better marker for measuring our cholesterol and our risk of cardiovascular disease than just a regular cholesterol panel. It hasn't been fully adopted into regular practice. It probably will be in like 17 years because that's how long it takes for these things to get adopted into standard medical practice. But get your A1C checked. What's your A1C doing? Your A1C, your HbA1c, your hemoglobin A1C is a measure of what your blood sugar has been doing for the last 3 months, and it really gives you a window into your risk of diabetes, right? So less than 5.7% is normal. Ideally, you want it even closer to 5. The closer to 5 you are, the better, right? Between 5.7 and 6.4 is your pre-diabetic range. Like, this is your body saying, I need help. I need
Yeah.
help big time. And then anything above 6.5, if you get it a couple of times on 2 different blood tests, is diabetes. So get your blood work, really understand that there is so much more in your control than you know. Add more fiber to your diet, eat more plant foods, move your body. Even if it's a 10-minute walk a day, start there. Start with what you can do. Don't listen to the recommendations. Start with what you can do. What I'm really working on is my sleep. I'm in a really busy season of life, entrepreneurship, young kids, busy husband. So my sleep is not so great, but sleep has a huge impact on your blood sugar control, your metabolic health. Stress is another big one. So those are all things. And then know that there are tools. Know that you don't have to be perfect with all of this. 10 years ago, when my husband and I started our lifestyle journey, this is how we started. I found out I carry a genetic mutation from a blood test, and he found out that he had high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and was pre-diabetic on a blood test. He felt completely fine. He's a very lean guy. He always has been. So he had metabolic syndrome, and I had a genetic mutation that increased my risk of cancer. And that took us down this road of like, we really need to do something, because what we do today in our 20s and 30s is going to reflect the diseases that we get or don't get in our 40s, 50s, and 60s, right? So it's an investment today for what you're going to redeem in the future. And so I now am a big fan of tools, because we're living in a crazy lifestyle. People are busy with so many things. And so it's okay to use tools to gain momentum, to go from where you are to where you want to go. And so, if you follow me, I talk about 2 tools. One of them being what I'm actually doing right now, which is Prolon. And this is like a clinically backed, tons of science, 5-day fasting mimicking diet, where you basically take your body on this journey for 5 days to help with, optimizing using your fat for fuel, cellular rejuvenation. And you can look into it or DM me, and I'm happy to share the science behind it. But they have a whole program now for diabetes remission and regression, metabolic health program. I can refer you to those. So if you have any of these conditions, DM me and I can send you a referral. They have a whole program that you can join. I don't do it for metabolic health necessarily. I do it more for maintenance, 2 to 3 times a year. I think of it like a spring cleaning for my body, right? We spring clean our homes. We should give our bodies the same benefit of cleaning out the cells, getting rid of stuff that we don't need anymore, right? So that's what this is good for as well. So I do that 2 to 3 times a year. Then the other thing that I use every day in my regular life is something called the Feel Great system. We used the original version of this system 10 years ago when my husband and I found out those blood test results. And then what we basically did was we did a 90-day program, because where you are today didn't start yesterday. Where you are today is a reflection of habits you've had for the last several months and years, right? And so you can't expect to just start to eat healthy for 1 week and then all your problems go away. It's going to take it takes 66 days to create a sustainable habit, but it takes at least, 90 days or so to see good results in terms of blood work and, reversing disease, right? And so this program we did 10 years ago, and the original program, and at the end of the 90 days, we had incredible results, right? And my husband was able to reverse his metabolic syndrome. He lost a lot of weight. I lost a lot of weight. Importantly, we lost weight off of our inches because we gained all this weight during residency. And so this program is what I recommend now to a lot of my clients. So the base of it all is on intermittent fasting. So whatever that looks like for you, whether it's a window of 12 hours, 14 hours, 16 hours, depending on, what your health goals are. And then we have two products. And again, I am an affiliate for both of these products, but I'm only sharing it because I love it. And they're not a replacement for a healthy lifestyle. They're momentum generators on top of the lifestyle that you're slowly trying to build up so that it can be sustainable. So the first product is something called Unamate, and Unamate is an extract of the yerba mate plant, which has tons of great benefits for metabolic health, for mental health, and it allows you to fast much easier. So it kind of gets rid of that food noise and the cravings. So I take it first thing in the morning when I'm working out, and then basically it allows your body to burn fat for fuel much more efficiently. So that's the first one, and then the second one is called Fiber. It's called Balance, and it's a blend of 7 different types of soluble and insoluble fibers, along with basically multivitamins. So I don't take a multivitamin because I take Balance. It has a blend of 7 different types of fibers, and then it has vitamins, minerals, and a whole complex. And so I take it before my biggest meal of the day. And I heard a great podcast the other day that describes exactly how this works. And what it does is it creates imagine a thick gel, right, in your stomach. And then when you eat, what it does is it slows down the absorption of that blood sugar. So it regulates your blood sugar, and it also traps, bile acids, bad cholesterol. And so this product has been around for over 30 years, studied at the Cleveland Clinic, and their suggestion was at the end of that study that if this was used on a population-based level, we could actually reduce risk of cardiovascular disease because it works so well for that regulation of blood sugar and cholesterol. So we've been taking this for a long time, and then we just added this, and it just makes fasting much more easier on a daily basis. And I decided that I was going to start sharing this with my clients when I decided my mom had gained a lot of weight over COVID, and I saw her at my father-in-law's funeral in 2023 in January, and she looked like a chipmunk. She had gained a lot of weight, and I told her, like, Mom, you're a 2-time breast cancer survivor. Excess weight is your enemy because that puts you at very high risk of breast cancer recurrence and all sorts of other conditions in menopause, right? And so I put her on the system, and you tell us your results, and then we'll call it a day.
Yeah, I took the system in 2023. March I started, and in 8 months I lost 45 pounds. And
incredible.
And then I started the journey of learning about metabolic health, diabetes, cholesterol, high blood pressure. Started listening to a lot of doctors, started following them, and understood how just taking care of your basic things has changed my life so much.
Yeah, 100%.
And I impacted, my community around me. I myself now, when I'm doing my Indian meals, like having dinners and stuff, I make all sort of different salads. For appetizer, I'll just give salads to my guest, and people look forward to my gatherings now. They know we'll get fresh, nice, interesting salads. So entertainment is not all about samosas and pakoras and fried food. You can even create your community according and teach them, and they want to learn, okay, what's in it, they look so pretty, it's so tasty, so healthy, and that's how you can make a difference in your own communities too. Not only yourself, you're making a difference in other people's life as well. And everything starts from your dinner table.
Yeah, 100%. I love that. Everything starts at the end of your fork, right? And like Mahatma Gandhi says, like, be the change you want to see in the world. Be the change you want to see in the world. You treat yourself first, and then take the knowledge you've gained, the experience you've gained, and go and help other people, because I can tell you, we are sicker than ever before. We're dying younger than ever before. Our children are at risk. Like, we need to share this information with the masses. As far as we can share it, we need to share it. And there's no better time than today. With the leverage we have with the digital world, our voice and our story can reach the other end of the world. So you don't know who's listening. So share your story, you know, start where you are, use tools if you need them. Today is the youngest and healthiest you'll ever be. And I empower you to know that there's a lot you can do. So that's the end of our live. It went way over than I thought, but it was a good chat. I hope it was informative. Please share it if you were here live. If you're catching the replay, thank you for watching. Please share it. As always, none of this is medical advice. Even though I'm a doctor, it's really just for your informational and educational purposes. If you want the soup recipe, I am going to share this on Instagram, and you will get a copy of the soup recipe if you comment lentil on the post that I'm going to share shortly. So comment lentil on the post and I will send you the soup recipe. And then if you're interested in learning more about Prolon or about the Feel Great system, just send me a DM and I'm happy to guide you and share these tools with you that are honestly changing lives. So thank you, and I hope you have a beautiful day. Bye, Mom.
Thank you, Vita.
I love
Thank you very
you.
much. Love you. Bye.